Yay, it's day 5 of the Heartbreak to Healing Challenge. Whew. Okay, today we're going to get clear on what being healed is because it sounds great, right? Like very, very hashtaggy, very TikToky, to be healed. But what does that actually mean? We are all the meaning makers of every single word and choice and experience that we have. So now we're going to be intentional about what healing actually means and what it looks like for you as an individual. So, just like we got clear on what healthy love is and isn't yesterday, now we want to give us some metrics or some data points of like what is healed enough. I come from the belief that we're never fully healed, right? We can heal through things and we can get to different layers of healing, but let me kind of give you a definition of healing that I like to use with my clients. So, mental and emotional healing versus physical healing, very similar. Okay. So, when we get a cut on our arm, let's say it's a deep cut, right? A really painful one. What is it that happens? A, there's pain, right? B, there's lots of symptoms and lots of bleeding and things that we've got to stop. So what do? We put pressure on it. Okay. Now start to connect the dots of what mentally and emotionally happens with something like trauma, like a little t trauma or a big T trauma. There's lots of confusion, chaos that's happening. Our nervous system goes into fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. And so we put pressure on the situation and we try to get the immediate symptoms to stop, right? Whatever we got to do to get them to stop. Yell out, we can isolate, we can ignore it, we can disassociate, we can do a whole bunch of different skills to try and get the immediate pain to stop. Okay. Then what ends up happening? The body goes to work to try and heal. The first thing the body does is creates a hardened outer shell. We call it a scab, but visualize that emotionally, when we have a really difficult experience or a trauma, we kind of develop this protective mechanism, this hardened outer shell to protect the wound that still is there. Like if we keep picking at the scab, which a lot of y'all are doing by dating the same type of person, just in different bodies, you keep picking at the scab to see, is the wound still there? Yep, still hurts. Okay, back to the hardened outer shell. And some people tend to isolate everyone out and they just go, relationships suck. People are awful. I'm just better off being alone. I'm not lovable, all that stuff. And they keep everyone out. And that's fine for a season as your body starts to get to homeostasis, like a regulated state, a new baseline of calm. Some of y'all live in a constant state of picking this off, right? So that you can know you're alive. But either way, we haven't actually healed. But that's where most people stop on their healing journey, is when they've developed a survival skill that is good enough, right? That the pain has stopped, but it's repressed, it's still there. So if we picked at it, by way of like, let's get back out into the dating world, or let's try this relationship again, or they said they would change and they've changed for a little bit, but now they're back to the old ways of doing things. We keep repeating these patterns and cycles because the cut is still there. There's just a protective mechanism over it. What true healing is that we work with the protective scab, we give it time, we give it some air, we put some Neosporin on it or whatever, and over time the skin heals and we develop a scar. Okay. It's not that we're the same person we were before the cut, right? We are changed forever from that experience, that relationship, that trauma, whatever, but it doesn't hurt anymore. We recognize there's a scar there. We're not the same as we were before, but it doesn't hurt. It can't be picked back open, nor do we have any desire to go back and relive it. We have accepted it, that it is a part of us now, and that we actually may be stronger for it, because that scar skin can actually be stronger and more tough than regular skin. Okay. That's why we get stretch marks, right? Those scars are there, but the rest of the skin can move. It's pretty tough skin. So that's kind of how I look at as a visual representation of what healing is, that we're never fully like healed like we were beforehand, but we've come to a place of acceptance of what is, a peace about it, that we acknowledge it happened, but we can also recognize that we are better for it. And part of this is the self-awareness work of being able to reflect back over time of how whatever that experience, that incident, that trauma was unfolded, and why it happened for the greater good of your life, because you are responsible for your choices, your actions, your beliefs. Okay. So while we can't control everything that happens to us, right, there's a lot of things that we can be the victim of, or traumas that can happen to us, or people, a variety of different things that can happen to us. How do we use that experience for our greater good? Okay, so I'll give you an example. I had a miscarriage in 2012. Hardest thing I've ever had to work through. Because losing a child that you've never met, I was 16 weeks pregnant, so I was pretty far along and had heard heartbeat and felt a kick and all that kind of stuff. But I was grieving future memories of a child I never got to meet. And part of that healing journey was not wishing it had never happened or repressing that it happened. It was finding a way to live in a world where she didn't exist with me. Her name was Kaya. And part of my grieving process was coming up with a way that she would be remembered by me and that my life would be reflective that I did have this other child, because the rest of the 3D world was not going to know that. When people ask how many kids I have, I say two, because it'd be weird if I said three and they only count two kids. And I'd be like, yeah, the other one died in utero. On you. So part of that was looking now, gosh, 13 years later, that moment in time of having the miscarriage led me to becoming an esthetician. I was very business oriented. I was, corporate girly, and my parents and my family and my peers would have just never been okay with me leaving all of that to go be an esthetician. That seemed like such a left turn. But when I had the miscarriage and I was grieving, it's like everybody's expectations were off of me. And so I did what felt good, which was going to beauty school and learning how to care for women and their physical appearance. And there was something very healing and cathartic about that. Then that led me to running my own business as an esthetician, which then led me to becoming a business coach for salon and spa owners, which I did for 8 years. And that helped me develop the skills and tools to understand my self-awareness, my own emotional regulation, because your business is a reflection of you. And if you are off the handle, hot, cold, your business is going to reflect that too. It is like personal development on steroids, running a business. And all of those skills and tools I learned in business coaching is what I use to then handle a divorce and go through the emotional ups and downs of divorce and healing from that I now teach others. So I can look at that pivotal moment of losing a child, as painful and devastating as that was, to look at, well, how did my life alter and change because of that? And how am I grateful for the life I have now that wouldn't have happened had that horrific event not happened? So it's a way to come at trauma and heartbreak and bad experiences with a place of gratitude for who you've become in spite of it, right? Who you become because of it, because of how you shifted and what you learned about yourself. And if you start to work on your self-love, you can actually identify that you are a better person because of that stuff or in spite of that stuff. It's a beautiful place to be. Really kind of gets you to that acceptance point of the scar. Okay. So you have made hundreds, if not thousands, of many choices, probably not so intentionally along the way. Now we want to start to, how can I be more intentional about the experiences I have as I move forward to make sure I'm creating the life I want from the inside out, which starts with your own decisions, which starts with your own emotional state. Okay, so let's get you a definition of what is healed enough. So on the worksheet, we've got a prompt there. What is healed enough? I know I'm healed enough when. Go ahead and take some time. I'm going to put on some journaling music as I do for you to answer that question. I know I'm healed enough. We're not going for perfection here. I know you people pleasers and you perfectionists love it. But when are you healed enough? When you can think about it and you don't cry, when you start to socialize, maybe putting yourself back out there, maybe when you guys, if you're in a current relationship, that you guys can go a week without shutting down, right? Or that you can have a tough conversation and not default to your survival mechanism. Maybe when you guys start sleeping together again, right? Or yeah, I mean, there's a variety of different things, whatever your definition is of being healed enough. Okay, feel free to pause the video if you need some more time. Oh, yeah, I was going to put on journaling music. Next journal prompt. What is the number one story I tell myself that's holding me back from being healed enough? All right, so if you're dealing with a breakup, maybe you have a belief that if you move on with your life or you accept that it's happened, that means they didn't mean as much or you didn't mean as much. I know a lot of people hold on hope, like, well, if I heal and I move on, what if they come back? right? Or if I'm healed enough, maybe I have to let that relationship go and I'm scared about what's going to happen next, or I don't know how to leave this relationship. Whatever that story is, start to write it down now. I'll give you about a minute or two to write out what is the number one story you're telling yourself about this person or this relationship that's holding you back from being healed enough. Next prompt, do you want to continue to choose believing that story is true? And this is where you get to choose your own adventure. We're being intentional about the choices we're making and the life we're creating. So, no shame or judgment. You get to decide what's right for you. So, do you want to choose to continue to believe that story? It is just a story in your head, and the meaning that you placed on that situation or that relationship. And at any given point, you can choose differently. You can choose to have a different perspective. You can choose to have a different belief. You can choose to solve for a problem that's keeping you there. So, if yes, why do you continue to choose that story? If no, why do you continue to let that story go? Feel free to pause if you need some more time. And let's explore the possibility and suspend reality for a moment, which is going to be hard for some of y'all. But let's just say I could snap my fingers and that story was no longer true. It was solved for. Whatever the block is, whatever's holding you back, we were able to solve for it. Let's say it's 6 months from now and it's more than solved and you've moved on in your life. What becomes possible for you when you stop believing the story that's driving the heartbreak and the emotion that you're experiencing? Go ahead and journal that out. I'll leave you for just a few minutes. There's just one more bonus video waiting for you right beneath this video. Go ahead and watch that, and I'll see you tomorrow in breathwork.